This is a starter's guide to SCP Secret Laboratory. It's a swiftly changing game, so for this video I'm only covering the fundamentals, the things that have mostly stayed the same. There is a lot to learn, and trying to absorb everything all together won't be that helpful if you've never played before. If you were new, this video's for you. Secret Lab is an asymmetrical, team-based strategy shooter game that takes place in a survival horror roleplay sandbox.
That's what I'm calling it.
How much of that you get will depend on the servers you're playing on, most of which are community hosted. As of right now, this game uses proximity chat only, so you'll need a microphone to communicate. I'd also check your key bindings before playing. You are going to die and die lots. You don't want to spend a good round not dying just to be killed by the Steam overlay. Here's the context if you don't know much about what SCP is. The SCP Foundation is an organization that exists to capture and study anomalous objects, creatures, or phenomenon, things that defy science and/or threaten the world order. In Secret Lab, one of their facilities has had a containment breach, and dangerous SCPs are on the loose. Researchers flee to security guards to try and find safety while waiting on a mobile task force to arrive and resecure the site. This means rescuing the scientists and neutralizing the SCPs and other threats, including the Class D, the disposable test subjects. If left to escape the facility, they could expose Foundation's secrets to their enemies such as the Chaos Insurgency, which has also arrived during the breach to try and take the site for themselves. Imagine Secret Lab will have you playing among all these roles until the Foundation either resecures the facility or doesn't. There are three main teams. The MTF team consists of all the human roles loyal to the Foundation, and the Class D team consists of all the human roles that aren't. The other team is the SCPs. Scientists and Class D players must try to escape from the facility. They can try and fight their enemies on the way, but freedom is their priority. SCPs must try to kill all Foundation personnel, which is everyone but the Chaos, and the facility guards must try to keep them at bay until the better equipped nine-tailed fox arrive. Them and the Chaos will spawn later in a match and are more suited for combat than the other roles. NTF, alongside guards, need to secure scientist escapes and eliminate the other teams, and Chaos need to secure Class D escapes and eliminate the MTF team. Fighting SCPs will only be necessary if needed for saving Class D. Currently, everything including the match structure is subject to change, so I'll only be able to describe things as they were prior to the release of this video. In most cases, the match ends when only one team remains. For the human teams, they either win or stalemate depending on whether an escape role player had escaped. For MTF, that would mean they win if a scientist escaped, and stalemate if they didn't. When it comes to SCPs, because Chaos aren't associated with the Foundation, they don't need to be killed for the match to end. The extra condition on an SCP round ending, they need to prevent Class D escapes. If they escape, regardless of whether there are Chaos left or not, it will be a Class D win, as opposed to the stalemate the human teams receive when they fail their side objective. Again, the specifics of the win conditions may change, so remembering them won't be as important as knowing how you're supposed to play as each role. Human roles will have similar mechanics. The differences are their spawn locations, equipment, and goals. Both human teams have a role that needs to escape and a role that fights. If you are a scientist or Class D, then you are in light containment and need to escape. This zone is one of 4 in the game and is furthest from the surface zone, which is where you'll need to go. The path to escape will take you to one of 2 checkpoints with an elevator to heavy containment. In heavy, there will be a checkpoint directly into entrance zone, where there will be 2 gates blocking elevators to surface. Checkpoints and gates will require key cards with the right access to open. Checkpoint cards are easy to come by, but gate cards are less so. Unless you want to try and find one, you'll have to make one using the machine in light containment, SCP-914. Any card can open the doors to 914, so scientists will already have access. Class D will have to go looting around. There are lots of things you can do with 914, but the most important thing for you to know is that if you drop an item in the intake, set the knob on the machine to fine, and turn the key, a better item will show up in the output. You can see whether you have checkpoint or gate access on your card by looking at it in your inventory. Once you have the right cards, it's time to try and navigate to the exits. My advice is to pick your right or left wall and follow it. Most non-hallway rooms will be on the perimeter of each zone. Remember where you have to go. It's checkpoint with elevators to heavy, checkpoint to entrance, gates to surface. After reaching the end of surface, you'll immediately respawn as an NTF if you are a scientist, and a Chaos if you are a Class D. Your belongings will come with you. Facility guards Guards, Nine-Tailed Fox, and the Chaos Insurgency are roles for fighting, and supporting the escape role players. If you start the game as Facility Guard, then you're in Entrance Zone. You won't have enough ammo or numbers to take down a full team of SCPs, so unless you can get some good keycards yourself, you're best off trying to help the scientists not die until the NTF can show up. They will have much more firepower than you. SCPs have a lot of health, some of them with regenerating armor, but as much as they don't act like it, they really can't stand to be shot too much. A coordinated team of NTF or Chaos will quickly shred them if they aren't playing smart. Do know, the weapon of a guard isn't worthless. It's more than enough to fend off an SCP, and it's definitely more than enough to put a Class D in their place, be it a body bag or handcuffs. I should mention now that you can use guns to detain unarmed players. They'll drop their items and become unable to interact with anything. Escaping while cuffed puts them on the team they are prisoner to, giving them an escape point. With far fewer scientists than any other role in a match, MTF may need to detain a Class D as a substitute if all the scientists die. The Chaos Insurgency can do the same with scientists. A Class D is an extra chance for MTF to fulfill their objective, and most Class D won't have any way to defend themselves, so they may choose to comply if it means keeping opportunities open to escape. It is, however, a careful game you'll have to play when trying to capture someone. A player who is secretly armed may act compliant in order to find a better moment to strike. Odds are if they got a gate card, they may have reached some armories or other locked up items and locations. Guns are an obvious threat to other humans. Smaller weapons draw faster, and heavier ones will slow its user down as a trade-off for more power. They'll have plenty of attachments to alter their stats, some of which are better against humans, and others better against SCPs. A Class D with a good card will have lots of opportunities to get weapons. Grenades will immediately kill nearby humans, and can break down most doors. Whatever you do with them, don't throw them without purpose. Same goes for other nades such as flashbangs. They'll work on almost every class in the game, and will be super punishing to whoever gets caught by one. Guards spawn with them, and may need it if the SCPs decide to come for them first. There are also other nades too, such as the Rubber Ball and Ghostlight, which are SCP objects, 018 and 2176 respectively. These will be found in bulletproof cases around the facility. The Rubber Ball bounces around, perpetually accelerating and destroying anything in its way, while the Ghostlight is like an EMP grenade, briefly disabling electronics. Other SCP objects include the Cola 207, which grants infinite stamina and super speed at the expense of your health. It's stacked by using more, and removed with SCP-500, a cure-all pill. There's also a Hat 268, which grants temporary invisibility. The effect goes away earlier if you do anything suspicious, and may not work on SCPs with special vision mechanics that would render invisibility useless. Light Containment also has a special room for SCP-330. Take no more than 2 candies from the candy bowl, and get short status effects from them. SCP-related locations and items will all require differing levels of containment access, mostly Tier 2. Weapon locations also mostly need Tier 2 in armory access, but Tier 3 gets you the Micro HID, a weapon for melting SCPs. If used properly, you can kill an SCP with it in seconds from full health. I think of it being more like a chainsaw than a gun. It doesn't have a lot of range and needs to be revved up before it can fire. Holding your secondary click gets it running and sustains it, while primary click will fire it. The Micro is extremely valuable and limited in use, so don't let go of the charge until you're finished with it or have to abort your attack. There are a few other things that containment access can do, but we're going to move on to the last 2 access types, Intercom and Nuke. Intercom is a location and entrance where you can broadcast your microphone across the facility. Hello. And the Nuke room has 2 locations. There's the Alpha Warhead Silo in heavy containment, and the Warhead Control Room on surface, the control room being the one that needs a keycard. The Warhead is one of the few methods of flushing people out of the facility. Light Containment has a special decontamination process that occurs later in the match, which gases the whole zone, killing everything inside and making it inaccessible. It's a countermeasure to hiding, but the Nuke will destroy the whole facility below the surface if that isn't enough. Nuke is started in the Warhead Control Room and enabled and disabled in the Warhead Silo. So if you want to turn the Nuke off after starting it, you'll have to go there. There is a point of no return when the countdown is almost finished, so don't get there too late. The last important aspect of the game is the SCPs themselves, of course, all of which have unique gameplay and share a simple task: kill all MTF and prevent the Class D from escaping. The first one has many names. If there's one number out of all the SCP numbers that you're going to remember, it's going to be SCP-173. It kills people by snapping their necks from behind, moving around only when unobserved, be it in the dark or whenever its observers all blink. Humans traveling alone will have a hard time escaping them, and are certain to die if the lights go out. 173 will also be able to excrete something on the ground to slow people down, and can nearly double their movement speed in exchange for disabling their attack. If you're looking at them and they disappear after you blink, they may have warped behind you. 173 is the only SCP that doesn't spawn in heavy, starting close to the Class D and Scientists in light. Next is SCP-096, or the Shy Guy. Shy Guy is completely incapable of harm until someone has observed their face. Afterwards, everyone but the observer will vanish from their view, and Shy Guy will become enraged. With their speed, strength, and innate sense of where its observers are, it will be very easy for them to swiftly track their target down and kill them. Their attack being able to tear down regular doors, and their secondary click allowing them to lunge through the air and pry open larger doors. The only warning humans will have is the sound of Shy Guy's cries, but they will be able to quiet down if they hold near a door. If you hear a Shy Guy become enraged, don't give them an extra target by looking at them. They won't be able to insta-kill you if you haven't looked at them. Next is SCP-049, the Plague Doctor. The Doctor is a simple SCP. You walk around and touch your enemies when you are close. While they aren't the most powerful and won't be able to take as much damage as other SCPs, they can make zombies from the recently deceased. You can expect that if you die to the Doctor, you're going to join their team soon. Zombies have more health than a regular human and can't move as fast, but they have a melee attack, making them a huge threat to unarmed players. They can still take headshots, so they can die pretty quickly, but once there are multiple zombies, it will be much easier for the SCPs to control the map. SCP-939 refers to the dogs, of which 2 can spawn in a single match. Dogs don't have typical vision. They'll only be able to see humans if they are moving, or if they accidentally walk into them. After spotting a human, they'll be able to track their position until they've slowed down long enough to disappear again, or gotten too far away. Dog doesn't have an insta-kill attack, but they will inflict amnesia on their target, making it harder for them to navigate around. SCPs mostly all have a fixed movement speed, but Dog has a sprint. The advantage is that walking makes them silent. Dog can also use proximity chat. Damn, Daniel. The main talk key uses an SCP-specific chat room, but Dog can use their alt talk key to speak with humans. Next is SCP-106, the Old Man, or Larry. Larry is resistant to conventional weaponry and will take longer for humans to deal damage to. Larry can walk through doors and can warp to a point of their choosing. Their attack brings humans down nearly half their health and sends them to the pocket dimension. Players in the pocket dimension will slowly die unless they can escape, which is a matter of luck. Escaping will drop them somewhere back in the zone that they were grabbed in. If killing Larry proves too difficult, Larry can also be recontained. Using a containment tier 3 keycard, their chamber in heavy can be entered. Inside is a mechanism with a femur breaker, of which a player must sacrifice their life to enter, while another player activates it. The screams of the sacrifice play over the facility speakers. All you need to know about why this is what's happening is that it calls Larry back to their chamber, which is assigned to let them enter but not leave. In-game, being recontained is mechanically the same as dying. Last SCP is 079, the computer. They look through the cameras and control the facility's electrical systems. Controlling the camera is done with the mouse. Spacebar will toggle locking the mouse to the middle of the screen, which you'll want to use to look around efficiently. They get around by using the movement keys or clicking camera icons or room icons on their map screen, which they can use to track their allies' position and identify the number of players for each role. They'll mainly want to follow their friends and lock doors on anyone they are chasing. Interactions and assisting in kills gains them XP. Leveling up increases their maximum power and regeneration speed. After leveling up, computer will be able to black out rooms for a few seconds. There is little that humans will be able to do to survive this trap. Computer will be defeated if all the other SCPs die, or heavy containment is overcharged. Armory Access Tier 2 cards can open generators, of which there are 3 around heavy. Turning them on starts a timer. When the timer on all generators are finished, the door to 079's chamber will open, and inside is a button. Pressing it will execute the overcharge. There are more things it would be helpful to learn, like 914 recipes or map layouts, but I've tried to refrain from showing details like that, just in case they get outdated and you end up absorbing false info. After a year, my hour-long 2020 guide full of tiny details was swiftly transformed into a historical documentary, so this video I hope to have more longevity. That way I don't have to keep making them. I also hope it works better for beginners. I suppose I should say before ending the video, this game is not as organized and formal as I've presented it. All this info is to ensure that when you play, you know how things work, but I can't really tell you what the exact experience of the game will be like. It'll all depend on the people you wind up with. It's a chat room with a game attached to it. I've said it before, this is the kind of game you tell stories about. I've collected many, and want more. Okay, I don't know how to end these. I hope this was helpful. See ya.